Welcome to Watch the Booker Man and to the Impact Wrestling which follows Against All Odds 2012. Of course, it's been a little while, so we've got the card on the screen now. I'll also say, before we get into anything else, that there was an issue with the recording of this episode when I did it, and it was quite a few months back that I did the original recording, so I'm going to have to read a transcript of what was said because the audio was messed up. So if anything doesn't quite sync up with what you're seeing on screen, that's the explanation. Between this episode and the pay-per-view, we've also recorded 4 weeks of Evolve Wrestling with the Super X Cup taking place, so check that out if you want to see who is facing El Generico for the X Division Championship at Destination X. But now we'll go into Impact Wrestling and all the fallout from that pay-per-view. I think this is a really good action-packed episode, and I'm looking forward to getting straight into it. We begin in the office of Kurt Angle, who is speaking about the incident which took place during the main event of Against All Odds on Sunday. He says that in his previous role as a wrestler, he'd have marched down to the ring to open tonight's show and called out Samoa Joe for a fight, and that would have been that. However, after speaking with Impact Wrestling higher-ups this week, he knows that as much as he'd love to do that, he can't. The incident we're talking about here is that Samoa Joe choked out Kurt Angle, who was the ringside enforcer in Sunday's main event match, and he announces that Samoa Joe will be suspended without pay for the next 30 days. The key fact here is that the suspension will see him miss the Destination X pay-per-view, and to Kurt, that is the perfect solution because at that show, Jeff Hardy will receive another opportunity to challenge CM Punk for the Impact World Championship, given how he was screwed out of that opportunity at the pay-per-view. That match will be an anything goes match, so of course Samoa Joe's been Punk's right-hand man for quite some time, and he will not be in the building at Destination X. What's more, Jeff Hardy will have access to tables, ladders, chairs, and anything else you can think of. Of course, that's a situation that he thrives in, and this is probably the toughest challenge of CM Punk's reign so far, as Kurt switches focus to tonight's show and starts talking about what's going to be a huge main event. Shelton Benjamin storms into the office, albeit with a noticeable limp as he does so. He is furious after Charlie Haas attacked him after their defeat to Bryan Danielson and Desmond Wolfe on Sunday, and he wants to fight him, and quite simply, he isn't willing to wait. Shelton wants Haas, and he wants him tonight. If Kurt Angle doesn't make that an official match, Shelton's going to go and find his former partner because they're fighting one way or another. It's just up to Kurt Angle whether that happens in the ring, on TV, or in the back without the cameras. Kurt Angle takes a moment to consider this. He can see how angry Shelton Benjamin is, and he has a little bit of a personal investment with this, the two men being his former Team Angle proteges. Angle responds to Benjamin's intensity by telling him to go out to the ring right now. Shelton is in his workout gear and not his attire, but Angle says that he doesn't need to change because Kurt is going to go and find Haas right now and send him straight to the ring. Also, he's rearranging the show because just days after this initial betrayal, Benjamin versus Haas is going to open Impact Wrestling. The commentators then formally introduce us to the show, maybe buying a little time as Shelton Benjamin enters the ring because we've got to have the idea that Angle has to go and find Haas and explain the situation to him. Eventually, Charlie Haas makes his way to the ring in just shorts and a t-shirt, so neither guy are in their usual attire, but it's not quite street clothes, so it's not going to be too much of a restriction on them. As the bell rings, we see that Charlie Haas is just as fired up as Shelton Benjamin. Obviously, he let out a lot of aggression at the pay-per-view, but he goes straight for the man that he attacked on Sunday, perhaps sensing that weakness as he specifically targets the injured knee. Benjamin, however, can evade him even on one leg, and throughout the early stages of the match, he uses Haas's over-exuberance against him, and just a couple of minutes into the match, as Haas charges into Benjamin, he jumps out of the way, with Haas going headfirst into the turnbuckle. He turns straight into a pay dirt for the 1-2-3, and it's a hugely embarrassing defeat for Haas to start the show. A match that lasts just over 2 minutes, and this is 4 nights after his big heel turn, so not a good start to this run for him, but this isn't a burial of Charlie Haas by any means. I just want to make that clear to everybody. It may look like one, but this is just the beginning of the story, and I've got big plans for both of these guys over the next few months. Shelton rolls out of the ring straight after. He's of course not satisfied with just this as his revenge, but just as shocked as everybody else at the speed of his win, he's certainly delighted to have made a fool of his former partner. Being able to humiliate Haas, sees a smile return to his face for the first time since Sunday. After the referee raises his arm, Benjamin begins to hobble up the ramp, still selling that injured knee. However, as he reaches the top of the ramp, he is once again attacked from behind by Charlie Haas, who has got his hands on a steel chair. He takes Benjamin off his feet with one swing of the chair to the back of the knee and continues to target that injured area until basically the chair gives out, so we can only imagine the damage done to Benjamin's knee. This embarrassment only appears to have fueled the fire inside of him, an absolutely relentless and ruthless assault, and it takes members of the security team to pull him away from Benjamin. The commentators saying what everybody is thinking: this rivalry is far from over. A fast-paced, action-packed way to start the show, and a big jolt in the arm for that storyline. We return from the first break to see Charlie Haas being escorted from the building. He's struggling, he's trying to break free from the security team, but Kurt Angle has made the decision that Haas simply cannot be in the same building as Shelton Benjamin. Kurt obviously has the personal investment in this rivalry, as I said earlier, and we can see just how angry he is as he tells Haas that he has gone way too far. He's almost playing the father figure in this storyline to both men, given their history. He orders security to get Haas as far away from the building as possible, and as he turns away, he runs into the Impact World Champion. CM Punk confronts Kurt Angle, suggesting that he is scheming to try and get the title away from Punk. But CM Punk says that if the man in charge thinks that putting him in the ring with Jeff Hardy is more dangerous for Punk than it is for Hardy, then he was clearly starved of oxygen a little too long in that Coquina clutch this past Sunday. Punk laughs as he gets his dig in on Angle, but Kurt doesn't see the funny side and says that this isn't the case, it's never been the case. He doesn't need to try and benefit one competitor or another. He's just trying to ensure a level playing field for a change. With Samoa Joe suspended, that's finally set to happen at Destination X, and it's also going to be the case tonight when CM Punk goes one-on-one with one of the guys who he screwed on Impact Wrestling's debut episode, Desmond, Wolfe. Wolfe and Danielson may now be the World Tag Team Champions, but that doesn't mean that they've forgotten what happened all those months ago, and this match tonight is going to be Wolfe's chance to get some revenge on the Impact World Champion. We then go into the second match of the night, a bout which had decent reaction from the crowd, but apparently it's subpar wrestling. Sarita and Taylor Wilde come out of their rivalry with Hamada to pick up a victory over Daisy Hayes and Mischief in 9 minutes and 34. It's a back and forth match. Both teams doing well, but Wilde gets the pin on Daisy Hayes with a Northern Lights suplex. Hayes is the weak link, but not a million miles away from the others, who all put in decent performances. A 58, which is solid for a mid-card match. The winners celebrate a much-needed victory. A difficult few months for these two knockouts, but moving on from Hamada, their sights are firmly set on the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Remember, these two were the first women to ever hold those titles, and they'll be wanting them back as soon as they get the opportunity. This win a step in the right direction. Next, we get an underwhelming segment as the New Age Originals make their way out to the ring. The Kings of Wrestling flank Tyler Black, the man who pinned Eddie Edwards Against All Odds in that 6-man tag team Civil War type match against the New Age of Honor. Black takes a microphone and says that they're all hurting, they're all tired, but above all else, they feel great. They've proved that they are the greatest trio in professional wrestling, which begs the question, what's next for them? Well, despite the jubilation of the victory, they still have an issue to deal with, that issue being Jimmy Jacobs, this in reference to his apparent involvement with Aries and the Wolves, who attacked Tyler Black and the Kings last week. It appeared that he had used the vehicle of the New Age to assist the New Age of Honor in finding the Originals. However, before he can get too far into this, Tyler Black is cut off by Austin Aries. Surprisingly, we see that Aries is coming out to face all three men on his own, and when he enters the ring, his focus is solely on Tyler Black. Aries says to forget about Jimmy Jacobs, in fact forget about the Wolves and forget about the Kings. The three of them can have Sunday night, because everybody knows that deep down this has only ever been about Austin and Tyler. They never saw eye to eye because Tyler has always been jealous of Aries. Going back to before they were even in this company, Tyler has always lived in the shadow of the greatest man that ever lived. Aries is going to give him the chance to get that chip off his shoulder and finally prove himself, because he is challenging Tyler to a match at Destination X. Tyler looks to Hero and Castagnoli after this is said. They both nod and Black accepts the challenge. He says that this is always going to be about the 3 New Age originals above everybody else. However, he is willing to accept the challenge on the basis that Aries truly means what he's saying. This is going to be just the 2 of them at Destination X, and that's kind of the motif of the pay-per-view, it seems. Hopefully, no outside involvement in either of these big matches that we've already put together. We want a night of fair fights at Destination X, no Kings of Wrestling, no Wolves, everybody bad from ringside, and already 2 huge matches set for that pay-per-view. We then go into the interview area for more reaction to Against All Odds. Jeremy Borash speaks with Jay Lethal, who has demanded this interview time to talk about his victory over AJ Styles at the pay-per-view. As ever, Jay Lethal has that chip on his shoulder, which has basically become his whole persona at the minute. He calls out those who have suggested that he only won on Sunday because AJ Styles came back too soon. Make no mistake, he isn't denying that AJ Styles was probably not 100% on Sunday. But to turn this interview around, he's got a few questions for Jeremy. Does JB think that Jay was 100% when he won the X Division Championship 4 times? Does he think that Jay was 100% when he carried Consequences Creed to becoming World Tag Team Champions? Or when he became the Global Champion, the Evolve Champion? Does JB think that Jay Lethal was ever 100% on his way to becoming one of the most decorated competitors in Impact Wrestling history? The answer is of course no, because this is tough. If AJ Styles himself has any issue with how Jay Lethal beat him at the pay-per-view, then tough luck, because he lost fair and square. Jay Lethal is moving on to bigger and better things. AJ Styles is in his rearview mirror, a very confident Jay Lethal, and he's making sure that his point is clear to everybody before we go into the 3rd match of the night. And this is a little follow-up from something that happened on Evolve. Kevin Steen, after Roderick Strong was defeated by El Generico, cut a promo basically running down Roderick Strong, and this is basically his chance to prove himself and prove Steen wrong. He does do well with the 72, and he's actually the better performer in this match, but with a package pile driver, probably after a poke to the eye or something similar, that's enough for Steen to pick up the win. And we've seen a bit of a losing streak develop for Roddy here. He's trying to do things the right way, as he always has. Steen bends the rules and gets away with it. Adam Pearce did the same to him a few weeks ago, so Strong is obviously at a pretty low point at the minute. Steen is then joined in the ring by Paul London and the Young Bucks, the new stable which officially formed at Against All Odds. Steen takes a microphone and says that Generico may have escaped with the X Division Championship on Sunday, but the image of these 4 men in the ring will send shivers up the spine of him, the Motor City Machine Guns, and the rest of this roster. Sunday was a blip, but he points to Strong down on the ground and says that this is what is in the future of every single one of them. Coming out from the back, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin look to defend Strong, who's kind of been a bit of a victim here to this group, helping him back to his feet before starting to fire back at Kevin Steen. They are not buying a word that he's saying and remind him that things are far from over between the Machine Guns and Steen and London. As they talk, Roderick Strong appears to take a step back, and after a slight nod towards Kevin Steen, he kicks Shelley between the legs. The 5 men then start laying into the Motor City Machine Guns. It looks like Roderick Strong has reached the end of his tether. He was previously scouted out by Steen and London and basically given that open offer, and it looks like after losing to Steen and basically seeing what this group is capable of, he has made the decision to turn. El Generico runs down to make the save, but also finds himself a victim of the now 5-man strong group. Roderick Strong's heel turn ending the first hour of Impact Wrestling. A shocking moment, we hope, but something that I do think will help Roddy. He's been fairly bland. I think his character's been, he has good matches, wins some, loses some. Now, surrounded by these other personalities to bounce off, I think it's going to be really good for him. And I think with Steen leading this group, there's good things in the future for all 5 members of this team. The second hour of the show begins with Tyler Black and the Kings of Wrestling in the interview area. Tyler says that just because Austin Aries came out and interrupted them earlier, they're not just going to move on from what they actually went out to say. Everyone saw the footage last week, and their win against all odds doesn't mean that they're just going to forget what Jimmy Jacobs did. The man who brought the three of them to this company in the first place, drove Austin Aries and the American Wolves to the location that they were at last week, and he sat in the vehicle doing nothing as they were attacked with weapons. The very same van that first brought the New Age into this company was used to take down the three originals. Jimmy Jacobs hasn't had the guts to say a single word to any of them since the night they broke free of the Frankenstein's monster that was the New Age of Honor, but Tyler demands that next week Jacobs shows his face. Otherwise, Tyler's going to make some calls of his own, and Jimmy knows that one way or another he's going to find him and he's going to make him pay. It's simply a case of whether he wants to do this the easy way or the hard way, and he gives Jimmy Jacobs 7 days to make that choice. Back to the ring, Gail Kim defeats Roxy in 6 minutes and 25 with an eat defeat. This is another of Gail's exhibition style matches where she offers the person to face her, and if they win, they'll get a title shot in the future. Roxy falls short on this occasion, but Gail Kim doing very, very well. We can see the good job that we've done building her up, obviously. It's a fairly straightforward way, keeping her undefeated, having her win every match. It's going to see her progress, but she's improved from, I think, low to mid 50s when she came in, and now in a pretty short match getting a 72, so very encouraging. And what we want to see from the knockouts, basically Sarah Del Rey, Alyssa Flash, Mickie James, Tara, all these women getting good ratings, and I can imagine that down the line a match between Gail Kim and Sarah Del Rey, for example, on pay-per-view could be really, really great. Whether it could main event, I guess it depends on the story, but who knows? That's something to think about when we come to that. Gail takes a microphone after the match and puts over Roxy as a tough competitor, but she says that everybody knows that right now there's an elephant in the room. One woman who stands above all other challengers in Impact Wrestling, and since we've already got a couple of matches set for Destination X, Gail is calling out Hamada. Joined by Larry Sweeney, Hamada comes down to the ring and Sweeney says that it is great that Gail is willing to do business, even if it means that in a few weeks' time, she'll no longer be the Impact Knockouts champion. Gail cuts Larry off pretty quickly, saying that as far as she remembers, she didn't call him out. Gail wants to talk to Hamada. Gail once again puts over Hamada as an incredible competitor, saying that while she doesn't agree with her actions, she knows that Hamada did what she felt she had to do at the start of this year. With her now being the top contender in the division, it looks like that has paid off. Nobody can question Hamada's ability, so Gail is simply asking her woman to woman to shake her hand and seal the deal. Instead, Larry Sweeney steps up and is the one to shake Gail's hand, kind of pushing himself in front of Hamada, who seemingly would be willing to do that and make the match official, but Sweeney tells her she has a deal. He turns to leave, only for Hamada to grab the microphone from him. She tells Gail, "Your title is mine," before slamming the microphone down to the canvas and leaving the ring. She doesn't wait for Larry to follow, but he does eventually lag behind her, Hamada making it clear that she is more than up for facing Gail Kim at Destination X, and that she doesn't need Larry to speak on her behalf. We then get a video package which promotes the Super X Cup. That's going to begin on this week's Evolve Wrestling. Of course, it's already been recorded, but the package features footage from previous Super X Cups, which were won by Chris Sabin and Samoa Joe. There is also footage of the current X Division champion El Generico, and this is because, as we said, the winner of the Super X Cup will face Generico for the X Division title at Destination X. We then go into the fifth match of the night as Bad Influence of Fortune, that is Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian, defeat Team Canada in 4 minutes and 32 when Christopher Daniels pins Tyson Dukes with the best moonsault ever. Two decent performances from Kaz and Daniels, really good actually considering how they've been booked, and as we covered last week, they have something to say. We've acknowledged that they've not been booked quite as well as they should have been, and a serious looking Daniels demands 4 microphones from ringside. These two guys aren't here to celebrate a victory tonight. Daniels has the microphone and Kazarian gestures to the back for Beer Money to join them. Robert Roode and James Storm walk onto the stage looking similarly serious, all 4 men with this very stoic demeanour. However, as Beer Money reach halfway down the ramp, they are jumped from behind by 2 men who jump the barricade with their hoods up, and they each have a beer bottle. These bottles are smashed over the heads of Storm and Rude from behind, dropping them to the ground immediately, of course, and Bad Influence, Kaz and Daniels, get out the ring as quickly as they can to come and confront the two men. Their words are going to have to wait because a much more serious situation is developing. The two men remove their hoods and we see that it is Jay and Mark, the Briscoe brothers. The brawl then breaking out between the Briscoes and Bad Influence. We've not seen these guys on Impact Wrestling since the very first episode where they lost a World Tag Team Championships match, and they are back following their promos on Evolve Wrestling where they promised that at some point they would return. This brawl continues, again security having to be brought out to keep them apart. The commentators calling out this callous and unprovoked attack while showing a lot of concern for Storm and Rude, and whether you like it or not, the Briscoes have made their presence known as they return to Impact Wrestling. I forgot to actually put the heel turn in here, which is quite annoying, but obviously they have to be seen as heels after this. It's a very, very brutal and unjustified or seemingly unprovoked attack. Yeah, so we'll rectify the heel turn soon, but bringing this great tag team back into a prominent storyline here. And I think that while one side will win and one side will lose, this is going to be a great thing for everybody involved. We've got the Briscoes against Kazarian and Daniels, and the Briscoes v Beer Money. So three fantastic historic tag teams, obviously, as we know now. Particularly, I'd say the Briscoes, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. But we've still got work to do in terms of building them up to our audience and getting their popularity over once the dust has settled from that. And obviously we don't just want to skip over such a massive violent attack. We return from the break where CM Punk is seen entering the office of Kurt Angle just moments before his main event match, and showing the effect, showing how perhaps shocking that moment was or whatever. CM Punk asks Kurt Angle if he has any control over this show at all. He says that the last 90 minutes, in fact the last 2.5 months, have been complete chaos since Kurt Angle was put in charge. Apart from his boys Haas and Benjamin, Angle seems to be doing nothing about it. Punk tells Kurt Angle that he needs to start doing his job. Angle obviously doesn't like this and gets in the face of CM Punk. He's clearly had enough of Punk's attitude, and it looks like he is close to his breaking point. The jabs from earlier, obviously the attack from Joe on Sunday, it's clear that his instincts to fight, to lash out at CM Punk are kicking in, but he takes a breath and manages to keep his cool, remaining professional as the matchmaker of Impact Wrestling, and he gets in the face of the smirking Punk and tells him how about he does his job. Otherwise, Kurt can make this match with Wolfe an Impact World Championship match. He thinks actually that's the least Wolfe deserves after Punk screwed him out on that first show. If Punk doesn't want that to happen, he suggests he leaves and heads to the ring right now. So Kurt's showing who's in charge, and Punk doesn't like this. He's always been the guy with the power in any dynamic he's been in since he came to this company, but he does decide it's best that he steps down. First, however, he gives Kurt one final warning. He needs to steady this ship, and he needs to do it quickly before things get a whole lot worse. Paul Heyman allowed himself to lose control. He allowed that power vacuum to be created, and it was Punk who stepped in. If Kurt repeats the mistakes of those before him, then things are going to go very, very badly for him. The commentators then recap some of the events of tonight's show as we go into the main event, and while Samoa Joe is suspended and obviously can't get involved, and Punk's not actually in cahoots with the people who get involved in this match, luck seems to be on his side once more as Roderick Strong, following his heel turn earlier, comes out and distracts Desmond Wolfe as he takes control. He doesn't actually do anything in terms of getting in the ring, but he takes Wolfe's attention away from Punk and points up to the big screen. There we see that Wolfe's partner Bryan Danielson has been isolated in the back and is being attacked by Steen, London and the Young Bucks. So while Strong does nothing to Wolfe, he is distracted as he was setting up for a jawbreaker lariat to potentially win the match. He takes his eye off the ball, and with the referee's attention also averted by the screen and by Roderick Strong, CM Punk is able to crawl towards Wolfe and hit him with a low blow, followed by a go to sleep to steal the victory. Far from a clean win, so maybe disappointing to get a bit of a dodgy finish there, especially for what would have been an incredible match in 2012. But we got a decent length back and forth between them on TV, so maybe not too much to complain about, because for me, potentially with the right build, that could be a big pay-per-view match. We also appear to have set up a program for the World Tag Team Championships while keeping Wolfe strong in the process, so quite a few functions served by this match, so I'm happy with that. CM Punk gets his arm raised following another controversial main event victory. That's his go-to really, isn't it? Wolfe wants revenge there and then, but when he actually comes round, his focus is on helping Bryan Danielson, so he staggers up to the back. He obviously knows that there's a 4-on-1 attack going on, so that's kind of his priority. As Punk stands tall in the ring alone, his Destination X challenger comes out. Jeff Hardy runs down to the ring. He wants to get his hands on Punk after the screw job on Sunday, but Punk rolls out of the ring as he so often does, getting away at the last second. This leaves Hardy frustrated as Punk grabs a microphone and continues up the ramp. He tells Hardy that he is wasting his time. Just because Samoa Joe isn't here, it doesn't mean that Hardy is going to get his hands on him before Destination X. Punk looks to continue his rant, feeling like there's enough distance between the two of them, but Jeff has heard enough. He ignores that so-called invisible barrier between the ring and the ramp, which actually appears to surprise Punk. He didn't expect this, and the chase is on. Punk feels his best chance of escape is to jump down the side of the stage. The cameras try and follow this little chase as well as they can. Eventually, we see that Punk has basically been ran all the way around the backstage area and has no choice but to come back to the ringside area. So he leaves by one side of the stage and comes back on the other. This little game of cat and mouse ending with Jeff Hardy grabbing Punk's leg as he jumps up onto the stage. Punk kicks him away, but Hardy's basically made up the distance here and can catch him again. Now in the middle of the stage, Jeff Hardy hits CM Punk with a twist of fate and puts his boot on the chest of the Impact World Champion. So a little bit of a triumphant moment for Jeff Hardy, getting his shine back after the defeat at the pay-per-view. The number one contender stands tall to end the show, and this is a 99 rated segment, so obviously adding heat to our top storyline. Delighted to see that, with 3 more weeks to build upon before Destination X, so hopefully we can keep this storyline really hot and have a huge pay-per-view main event. Really happy with this show actually. It's an 86 overall with a lot happening on the show as well. Even if it didn't get that good of an in-game rating, I'd be very happy with this show, and it feels a little bit of a reset for quite a few people. I felt like in recent weeks, and bear in mind I actually recorded this episode quite a while ago, but the feeling that I had, and probably why there's been such a gap between the videos, is because I felt like just not enough was happening. We'd put a lot of focus into the rebranding of Impact Wrestling 2012, and I thought, you know, they were decent shows, but again, we're lacking those big storylines, and with this show, we're putting the seeds in place of what I think is going to be some really good storylines, hopefully anyway. The Briscoes were always going to return on the show, but like I pulled the trigger on Strong's heel turn, I probably would have built that up a little bit more, but I just wanted to spark a bit of life into his character, which he definitely needed, and to this new stable that's formed. We've got the 5 of them now, so potential for them to be in a big storyline. Loads of other stuff going on, of course. We've thrown a lot onto this week's show, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Hassan Benjamin igniting into a huge, heated feud straight away. Many big developments, followed by a huge main event. So I'm very happy with that overall. And I will check, but I think this is one of the best Impact Wrestling episodes we've done so far. So actually the second best after that 89 in January, of course. Towards the end of 2011, that probably would have been a par for the course rating. But since the change, we have, like I said, struggled to reach those same heights. So it's good to see that. Hopefully, with everything that's happened on this week's show, we can keep the momentum up and continue to build to our next pay-per-view. Thank you for watching this episode. I'll see you next time.